welcome once again to the Adventures Travel Club television show. I'm Marv Harrison, joined
and I'm
by
Betty Gerardin.
That's right, and Monsignor
Byrne.
And we are in Ireland, and we want to welcome you to this adventure, and we know that it's going to be a great adventure. And we happen to be standing in Galway, not in the bay, but just...
Yeah, but the bay, if you notice, right behind us there.
It is right behind us, isn't it?
And you notice we brought the California sunshine with us.
Yes, we did. We're very fortunate. They said before we got here a couple of days it was had gale forces.
Yeah, for over a week.
Isn't that
now
something
you're
else?
the Gale today. Marvin Gale Harrison,
Yeah,
that's the only Gale we have today.
You gave that away to everybody.
I gave it away. Now everybody knows.
Oh, but we're expecting a truly, truly fine trip, and we have some wonderful people that have joined us on this adventure.
Yes, very nice people. My brother met them last night, and he said, you have a beautiful group of people with you.
We always have a beautiful group,
yes.
Monsignor. We are so fortunate that we have such good people.
We should explain that. Monsignor's brother drove 2 hours down from
Tullamore.
Down here to Galway to join us for dinner last night.
That's right, yeah. Surprised us all.
What a great bunch of people we have traveling us. Look how happy they all are. And our marvelous bus driver, Ray Stewart, is going to talk to us now.
Well, they say a town existed here going back to the earliest times, and they say a fort was erected here back in 1124. And a guy called Richard de Burgh, who was a Norman, he took the city in 1230 and he made it his residence. And of course, down through the years, there have been a lot of raids and assaults on Galway city. Now, most of our towns and cities here in Ireland were walled towns and cities, which meant there was a wall completely surrounded the town or the city. And Galway was the same. Galway was once surrounded by a wall. And there was a very, very fierce plan here, a tribe who attacked Galway city very, very successfully on a lot of occasions. And they were the O'Flaherty's. And they had an inscription just over the west gate, and it read, "From the fury of the O'Flaherty's, good Lord deliver us." And there you can see the dome of Galway Cathedral there ahead of us. And as I said, we will be paying a visit, a short visit to Galway Cathedral.
Betty, before we visit the cathedral, let's stop and really take a look at Galway Bay as long as we're here.
Oh, yes, it's so popular in the song, Remembering
Yeah,
Galway Bay.
that's
Sure.
right. You know, it's very interesting. I found out that the Irish don't pronounce the TH. They don't pronounce the H. at all.
Cathedral? How do you say cathedral?
Well, you'll hear this throughout the shows now as Ray is talking to us, and a lot of times I've noticed that with the other people there too, that there's certain sounds that aren't pronounced that we're used to. Now this is Sea Point, which is sort of like a little amusement area. They have bingo there and some gambling, and that's right there on the edge of Galway Bay. But we're going to turn now and go back and look at the cathedral as Ray explains it to us.
And blessed in August of 1965, and it was opened and blessed by the late Cardinal Cushing of the USA. And the brick is of Galway limestone, and the floors are of Galway marble. There are some very, very beautiful windows, as you can see there on the left. Now you can go in. I think this door should be open. No, it is open there. I'll try it myself.
I'm really impressed with this cathedral, Betty. You know, it had both the old and the new in it. And did you see the ceiling there? Look at that. It's all wood.
Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
It's an unusual combination, isn't it?
But it works.
Uh-huh.
It really works, because you have the feeling that you really are in an old building. and yet you still have a modern feeling there with
Well,
the nice
Marv,
clean lines to it.
They did have some places in here that were the old church, and they built around it.
Yeah.
So it is a mixture of the old
Yeah,
and the new,
that's
like
right.
you said, yeah.
And it's interesting. Now, you're going to see a shot here in just a moment of President John F. Kennedy.
Oh, the love they have for that man,
For the whole Kennedy
Yes,
family, I
yes,
think, right.
uh-huh.
They actually may have given some money for this church. I don't know. I wouldn't be a bit surprised whether they did or not.
Yeah.
But this was quite an old building. There you get a shot there, as you can see, that, and that's all wood, that ceiling there. Now, not the dome, of course, but just on the naves. There it is. There's
Yeah,
the
that's a
picture
mosaic,
of Kennedy.
isn't it,
Yeah,
that's
and there wasn't,
done
again,
there.
very much light here, so this is kind of a grainy looking thing. But you know, right across the street from the
Yeah.
cathedral, you can fish for salmon.
Isn't that incredible? And Marv, didn't we have the wonderful salmon, the
Oh.
best food?
I'll tell you, we really had gourmet food on this trip to Ireland, and I love salmon and I love trout. And usually you had three choices for your main course, and I always chose the fish, and I was
like the salmon.
never disappointed. It was just great. But they have an area there where the salmon go up the, what do you call it, the steps, the locks, or what is that?
You're the intelligent one of the duo here.
No, but
you know those answers.
Well, no, I
don't know
wouldn't
what-
ask the question had I known.
I think it is locks. I think
that what
there's
it is?
something about locks.
Well, they were right there across
they
the
were
street.
right
as you-
there. It was fun to watch.
Oh boy, I guess it would have been nice. We had a lot of people who like to have been out there fishing with
Yeah.
them.
And this is fun too.
Yeah, this was a factory. This is the Tara porcelain factory. The Royal Tara, I believe, is the name of it. And this was a very interesting place because we got a chance to see how they pour into the molds and exactly how the glazes are put on. And we had a nice little tour where this young lady gave us through the factory. It's awfully noisy, so that's why we didn't put too much of it on tape, because there was the mixing and everything was going on there, and so it was a little bit difficult for us to get that on tape.
But you can certainly understand why it's so expensive when you see the man hours that's put into just one saucer, one cup, whatever it is they're making. It's so many procedures that they go through.
Well, that's just it, and so much of this, of course, is handwork.
Yes.
I mean, it's not all mass-produced, but a lot of handwork, especially when it comes to the finishing and the painting. Now, here's a young man, and this guy looked like he was, 10, 11, 12 years
he
old?
really was. But he actually is young. But he's on summer vacation right now, as the girl was telling me, and he's a very accomplished artist. So he's just there in the summertime. They don't have child labor as such.
Oh, well, I was wondering.
Yeah.
And this young lady here was also taking great pains at painting the design here on this piece. And Betty, this is going to go kind of fast because we drove rather fast through Ireland.
Yeah.
But I wanted people just to get a chance to take a look at what some of the houses look like. And we're going to do this through these series of programs that we have. Some of the newer houses, kind of like duplexes.
Could
on
be
either
anywhere,
side.
couldn't it?
Yeah,
So you
really.
don't think of that as being Ireland.
No, but you
really.
do this when you take a look at these.
Yes.
Now, these were row houses and very, very tiny inside as far as that goes.
And Marv, I still expected thatch.
Yeah, well, we'll see some of that later, but right now Ray's going to explain to us about this little town.
There's a lot of bars, a lot of public houses. And if you were here in Ennistimon for the night, you would have no problem of finding a bar with a sing song. There are lots of little bars here, and they just, these sing songs are not planned. They just start. There's a nice little house here in the left. It's a derelict house where a little woman sitting, she's supposed to be looking over the half door.
Oh, yeah.
Ray, Betty, Ray. You think I've been in one of those pubs?
I've been in pub visiting. What have you been doing?
I know. I was going to say that Ray was explaining about a sing-song, or a lot of the pubs have music in them at night, and you can sing along. That's what I was trying to get at.
Well, he talked about a bar, but they're usually referred to as pubs,
Right.
aren't they?
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
And a sing-song is simply
Sing-
because they do a lot of singing.
That's
Yes,
correct, right.
yeah.
And this is kind of interesting to see the people on an overcast day. We're out at the beach. Looks like one of our travelers found a friend, an Irish setter. Yeah, a pretty dog.
Yeah.
Oh,
We didn't have very many overcast days, I'll tell you. I think
That's
that
for
was
sure.
number one, and one with the Japanese gardens, and that was it.
hmm And this area, as Ray explained to us, if it were a good weekend there, that this little town would just be filled full of people. They're going to the beach, which we did see in later days
Yes.
because we had so much sunshine. Betty, this is what always amazed me: is this everything was so green,
So,
green.
that's what you think of Ireland.
The
is
Emerald
yes,
Isle.
the Emerald Isle,
And
absolutely.
of course, as we went along, we saw a lot of places, as Ray would call them, a derelict place, or a place that is sort of where the roof had fallen down. Or this may have been an old church, or it looks that way because you see there's a cemetery there.
That's
but
right. And they had castles there, too. And remember when he said ABC? The lady was writing in
Yeah.
her little notebook, another bloody castle.
Well, we saw lots of them. This is a very interesting place. This is the Cliffs of Moher, and they're doing a little construction work there. See the slate there in that in the truck?
Yeah.
They use that a lot for roofing material on those areas that are not thatched. But isn't this beautiful? These
Yeah.
cliffs.
Now,
Betty?
what do you call those? The Cliffs of Moher?
Cliffs of Moher.
Moher,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Would you like to listen to a little bit of Irish music?
Well, not particularly.
Well, you're
but
going
it's-
to anyway, because here it comes. Well, now, Betty, you have to admit that that was rather nice music that the kids made.
Yes, it was. But I like the kind of ARP they have in Ireland that doesn't come musical.
HARP
I-
is a beer.
That's right. And that was very, very, very nice.
Right. Well, it was the kids were out there in the performing. There were some other young performers out there as
Oh,
well.
sure. They were very talented. I'm making
Sure,
fun,
and they
but
were
I don't mean
and they were selling their audio tapes as
Yeah.
well. Here you can see the slate again. Now you said that those were little worms, those
Yeah.
designs in the
As
slate.
it was
huh?
laid down in
Is that right?
thousands and millions of years ago. Yeah.
I
yeah.
see. Well, it makes a nice design. Now there's your thatched cottage.
Just what I expected all over Ireland, just like I expected when I went to Bethlehem to see the crib and all the rest of the stuff.
You have to go back a few thousand years. The barn that we just showed there is a typical Irish barn that you see. Now you notice here that the Atlantic Ocean is there on the other side, and that the door to the house faces away from the Atlantic Ocean because they get some very strong, rough winds there, and so the door will always be facing toward inland.
Oh, there's your summer house, Marv.
Yes,
The one.
one of the derelict houses, right? Grass growing on the thatch roof. We want to explain that we're shooting the videotape through a bus window, and these roads are very narrow, and a lot of times it's up and down and up and down, so it's going to be a little bit bumpy. But I think it's worth it because this scenery is just absolutely beautiful.
I sat in the back of the bus on some of those bumpy ones, and I had chiropractic treatments a couple of times.
Well, I'll tell you, Ray got us everywhere, though,
Yes,
safe
he
and sound, didn't he?
certainly
Though?
did. He was a wonderful driver.
Oh yes, and a good guide. Now, Betty, here we're just going to come up to a little country lane, and as you can see, it's just beautiful. These trees grow right up over the top of you, and the hedgerows are sometimes. Now, this really blew my mind. The hedgerows are made up of
Fuchsias.
Fuchsias,
yes.
yeah.
Wow.
We're in an area right now next to the Atlantic Ocean, in the west part of Ireland, where there's over 250 miles of just solid rock. And you can see that the rock was put to good use because here's an old castle.
Another castle, yeah. Now
Another-
they use that castle for entertainment. They have dinners there
Mhm.
for the tourists.
And I think that's rather neat. In fact, in one of our shows, we'll show you an interesting dinner that we had in one of the castles. That's right. These shots here, we're just sort of along the roadside. I want to just sort of see the houses that are there. Beautiful gardens usually in the front yard. Of course, we're going pretty fast through all this, but again, I just wanted to take some shots here. And there's bogland there, way back on the other side, that kind of that brown thing that you see back there, that brown stripe back there. Well, that's where the sod and the peat are harvested, and we'll tell you more about that on other shows here on the Adventurers Travel Club. We'll actually show it up close and explain exactly what it is. But we wanted just to get some general shots here of the countryside because we are now on a main road. The areas that you see in this part of Ireland, you see a lot of the rock being used for fences.
Oh, yes. Of course, they utilize everything there in Ireland. Did you notice the soccer field as we passed by?
Yeah,
they are
I sure
great
did.
soccer enthusiasts. And
Right.
they did very well, too, you know, in the matches.
Ray's going to explain to us about this building.
Abbey on your left, it's a Franciscan abbey. It was built by a guy called John Nicogan back in 1290.
You certainly do see a lot of ruins like these old abbeys and churches all over Ireland.
Oh, yes. Look at the marvelous air conditioning that they have over there. It's wonderful. Way before their time.
I think the roof fell in there. But I couldn't resist this. We were stopped for a moment on the road on our way to the town of Knock. And this woman was, she was bound and determined she was going to get her cows out of this little area.
Isn't that wonderful?
Into another
Really?
pasture area. It surprised me, though, to see how many dairy farms there were there in Ireland. In fact, we stayed on one.
Yes, yes.
And it was very, very interesting.
Well, they have a lot of liqueurs, you know, too, that require the milk.
Bailey's
as well.
Irish
Bailey's
cream.
Irish cream.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And so this was just kind of fun.
And
as
look
we
at
were
the
waiting.
color, the green.
Oh,
And we
it
keep
is.
talking about the green, but look at it. Isn't that wonderful?
It really is. And now, Betty, let's go to the little town of Knock, where there was an apparition that appeared. And I love the signs that you're going to see in just a moment. And we're going to listen now as Monsignor explains to us a little bit about the history of this little village of Knock, Ireland.
We are here now in Knock Shrine in the County Mayo, and we're looking directly now at the new shrine that has been built. Right behind the back of this building is the actual spot where the Blessed Mother appeared in the late 1870s to about 12 people. It's one of the few apparitions where nothing was spoken, but several people saw the vision and the apparition. And now every day there are people here. They built this particular monument because the old church, as you might see there in the back of this new building, is pretty dilapidated now. And yeah, they have the spot marked right behind this building where the Blessed Mother actually appeared. So this shrine is directly in front of that now. And every afternoon there's a big basilica just around here to the right that we're moving in on now, that was built with a lot of donations from the United States, because lots of the Irish contributed because they had great faith in Knock. This afternoon at 3 o'clock we hope to be all there when hundreds of the sick will come and be brought in wheelchairs from all part of the country, and priests will be there, often up to 30 priests that can celebrate the Mass and help give the anointing of the sick to all those who need it. It's quite impressive. And then they walk in procession and say the rosary all around these grounds back to the grotto that you saw here a little earlier. This ceremony takes place every afternoon from May through October, and it's always packed. It's a sign of great faith of the people of Ireland. And the Monsignor Horan, that many people will remember perhaps in America, he was on 60 Minutes, built an airport out here in the middle of a bog that everybody laughed at him. Now they have 747s coming in on it, so you never know. And Marv, isn't that a beautiful setting?
It is. Yeah, it really is, Monsignor. It is. And you see that people are now, it is early, and people are still starting to arrive and fill up some of these seats.
And it's still 3 hours before 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And Marvin, you see the third station here in the grounds here at Knock. And an interesting thing for many people might if you can pick up the title of the station, the third station, Jesus falls the first time under the weight of the cross, but it is written in the Irish language, in the Gaelic. Titjan Isa an Céiríú féin a chreich. The Irish language is spoken in some parts here on the west coast by people that still is a family language. And it's just, there are only a few areas left where they actually speak the Gaelic at home. Most children going to school, in fact, I myself had to learn it like a new language when I went to school, because the language was killed during many years of persecution and died out except in a few small areas. So they still teach it, and in some areas they still speak it, even though English is the common language. Just an interesting little sidelight to all of this there.
We also have here a priest who's here with the parish group from Fresno, California, a man who's here who is a Nessa man, father, retired from the missions, now living and working in Limerick.
Well, Betty, I think this was a real treat for Monsignor Byrne, because he's one of the co-celebrants there for the Mass here at Knock. And not to think that we spend a lot of time in the church. In fact, this was the only time that we went to a service in a church in Ireland, wasn't
and
it?
I think that you put special emphasis on this because it is a shrine and it has world renown, so it's good. But we don't spend a lot of our time in churches like this.
No, in fact, I think most of the churches that we saw in Ireland was Church of Ireland, and those were a lot of those cathedrals, because they had a lot of historical relevance to the history of Ireland.
Right.
There,
they had been Catholic at one time, and then with the Protestant Revolution, was that what it's called?
No, well, that would have been more. We're looking at the history, I think, of the English that went into Ireland, right?
Okay.
And of course, there's still some very hard feelings there, because things that happened during the potato famine and things that we'll talk about as we get into the show later on. That's right. On this particular day at Knock, there were not quite as many people as Monsignor thought that there would be, but I think there were some holiday times, wasn't it?
That's right. And do you know how many it seats?
16,000, something like that?
16,000. So when you get 1,000 or 2,000 in a 16,000 building, it doesn't look like too many.
Well, it was interesting. It was sort of a treat for us to actually be there and participate in that particular service on the day that we were there. Betty, look, there's a field of potatoes.
In the gardens where the praties grow. Did you know that's what they call potatoes in Ireland?
Is that right?
Praties, yeah.
And then there's cabbages right next to it too. Did you have the corned beef and cabbage the one night? That we were there?
Didn't have the corned beef and cabbage. I just had a corned beef sandwich. I don't eat as much as you eat.
Oh, well, I just had a sandwich too, I must admit. More of the beautiful countryside, though, of Ireland.
Do you think our driver had anything in mind when he followed this particular truck in front of us? You see what it is.
I don't know, right. This particular town that we're going through, whose name I could not pronounce, is where some of the French landed, and they helped during the Irish uprising. Uprising? Is that
Revolution?
Revolution,
I think it was. But Marv, it's interesting to see the narrow streets and how we're driving. You know, the driver's side is on the wrong side.
According to us.
According to
right.
us. So if you're going down the street, don't get alarmed. We're doing it right.
Well, I'm not quite so sure. I tell you, I was a little frightened on some of these streets. I was just thankful that I wasn't driving.
And the way they park.
Well, and then sometimes you had to back up because there just isn't enough room on these narrow little streets.
But it's safe.
That's true. And fun. Well, I'll tell you, this is really fun, this visit to Ireland. And of course, some of you have seen these programs before, but the reason that Betty and I are showing them again to you is because...
we're going there again. There it is, that it is.
That's right, we're going to
It's
Ireland.
a little while to get it out of him, but that's the main purpose.
That's right. Now, what is our date? We're going
on July 11th. Fun time, a nice time of the year to go. We had originally thought about maybe going in June, but we changed to July to accommodate some people that wanted to go with us.
Yeah,
so
right.
we are now going in July 11th.
And Betty, we should explain too that this is a very limited group that we're going to take this time, because we wanted to use, like we did last year, a very small bus so that we can get in on the little lanes and roads that you see in Ireland, because although there is a big highway now, but we would like to stay off of that.
And we went in always like where the sheep were and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And then too, Marv, isn't it wonderful? We have our same bus driver that we had before.
Yeah.
Well, I say bus driver, he's real. He's the tour guide, he was the MC, he was our entertainer, he was, you name it, Ray was it.
The most marvelous
really
guide that you could possibly have, I think, in Ireland.
And we do have him guaranteed.
So that's really going to be fun. So if you are interested, we'll be running the phone number where you can reach Betty, and we ask you to do that right away, because Betty's taking off right away. In fact, just a couple of weeks is going to be escorting a tour to mainland China. So we'd like...
excuse me, let me say one thing. We filled that trip up, but we're going to do mainland China again next year. Same thing.
Okay.
So if anybody is interested in planning ahead for next year,
they can still
you
get in
can
touch
do
with
that
you.
now too.
Oh,
I mean,
that's
for
great.
China.
Okay, good.
We got to put it all in while we can.
Yeah, exactly. Betty, we should also state that we're going to be going to Southeast Asia. We're going to go to Bangkok and Singapore, and we're going to visit places like the Temple of the Emerald Buddha and the Grand Palace when we're in Bangkok. And it's just going to be a wonderful trip.
Those names sound so exciting, don't they? Bangkok, Malaysia. I mean, it just, it connotes all sorts of exciting places.
Well, it is. It's a very exciting thing. And we will be doing some shows on this here in the not too distant future, so that we hope that, as I say, we can whet your appetite on that one too.
That will be September that we will be going there. So you can plan right now. It is vacation time to be thinking about. So if you don't want to go to Ireland, you can go there with us.
Or you can come with us on the SS Westerdam for our Eastern Caribbean cruise, which will be in November. And that's going to be November 9th through the 16th. And that is, in fact, that's just really great. Even our airfare is included on that. Doesn't that sound like a luxurious thing to do?
It sounds good to me that you can put your clothes in and leave them there.
You don't have to pack them all the time.
Pack and unpack. And that's going to be with Father Barham.
Yeah.
And anybody that watches our television show and watches Father's teaching show, understand that it will be a fine trip with Father.
And you know how much fun he is to be with. Oh boy.
But you'll have both sides of it too, you know. You'll get a little of, if you want it, in the morning you can have the Mass for those that want to.
Yeah.
And then you're on your own for the rest of the day. So it should be nice.
It's going to be great. That's going to be fantastic.
Nice.
Betty, while we've got a little bit of time, we should explain. Sometimes I know that you get calls and people say, well, I've been shopping around and comparing. I see these ads in the newspaper that, gee, I can go on a trip real cheap, you know. You always see those, and I look at those too. You always see the little asterisks, you know, right next to that, which means go down to the bottom of that ad and read the fine print. Means that it usually does not include meals, and then any side trips you take are optional. You have to pay for.
I think what the biggest things that they're advertising right now are the cruises.
Oh, that's very good
Sometimes
right
you
now.
can really get a good buy on the cruises. However, they might have only 3 cabins or 5 cabins. But the thing I am really concerned about are the long trips that we take when we fly somewhere. So many trips do not include meals, and to me, I won't have a trip unless I can have the dinners and breakfast too. If you don't include those in the original price, it costs so much money to buy them on your own.
It does.
You add almost another $1,000 to the price of your trip. And not only that, it's the inconvenience of it, the language barrier that might exist. So when you go to compare, well, perhaps our trip with somebody else's trip, take that into consideration. Don't compare oranges and apples. Compare what you get for each trip, and I think you'll find that we are most reasonable.
Yes, we certainly are. Betty, that's about all the time that we have for this evening, so we would like to remind you to get in touch with us. Betty, give your phone number real quick, please.
My number is 488-7443.
And give Betty a call, if you will, and we want to thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next time in the great country of Ireland.
Bye-bye.